Welcome to LSE and welcome to Contemporary Turkish Studies. My name is Yaprak Gürsoy. I'm a professor of European politics at the European Institute and the chair in Contemporary Turkish Studies at LSE. It's a great honor to welcome Professor Selçuk Şirin to London and to LSE. This evening, Professor Şirin will give a talk on youth in the digital age, global trends with a focus on Turkey, as you can see on your screens. And this is going to conclude a workshop that we had convened for today, evolving the relationships between the media, politics, and academia. After this keynote speech, we will have the opportunity to have a Q&A session with Professor Selçuk Şirin, so you will find the chance to ask him questions. Let me now introduce our speaker. Selçuk Şirin is a distinguished professor of applied psychology at New York University. He directs the EPIC lab. EPIC is an acronym for Exploring People in Context Lab at NYU, it's located in Steinhardt, which is NYU's school focused on education and human development. Professor Şirin's work primarily focuses on the development and well-being of marginalized youth, including immigrant origin children in New York, Muslim youth in the US, refugees in Turkey and Norway, and students at risk in US schools. With over 100 publications, journal articles and reports, Professor Şirin is a prolific scholar. He has supervised many undergraduate and graduate students and published with them, undoubtedly significantly contributing to their career advancements. Professor Şirin's research has been acknowledged and cited tens of thousands of times by his peers. His co-authored book, Muslim American Youth, is a testament to his commitment to youth and children from different backgrounds. In addition to his academic achievements, Professor Şirin is renowned in Turkey for his public engagement and his ability to communicate complex psychological concepts and methodological evidence to a broader audience. His books and educational sets for preschool children have become invaluable resources for parents and practitioners. He has written 5 bestsellers in Turkey, and his new book, Bakışınızı Değiştirecek 10 Deney, İnsan, in English, 10 Experiments That Will Change Your Outlook on Humans, has quickly topped bestsellers lists this week. I can go on praising Professor Şirin's academic and public engagements, but I want to take a moment to mention that I find particularly motivating in his career and what I found particularly motivating in his work. As he also mentions in his books, sometimes explicitly and sometimes more discreetly, despite living and working in the US for more than 20 years, establishing a lab and becoming a prestigious academic scholar, Professor Şirin never forgot about his roots. You can call this giving back to the country and its past education system, which turned a village boy into a renowned international scholar, or you can use more fancy higher education sector language and call it research impact, knowledge exchange, and wider outreach. The point is, he has never abandoned his interest in Turkey and has worked tirelessly to help the country and its children, youth, educators, policymakers with his expertise. Many of us in this room, I think, would consider ourselves as part of Turkish diaspora. And I think we can find parallels in our hearts and inspiration in the work he does. As Contemporary Turkish Studies at LSE, our goal is to understand and engage with Turkey as well within our capacity, and even though we are actually geographically at the moment distant from Turkey. Like everyone else in this audience, I am eager to learn about Professor Şirin's recent research on the impact of digital technologies on youth identity and development. I will listen to the lecture, and I will also enthusiastically listen to the Q&A session. However, given his career as a Turkish scholar who has continuously worked for the betterment of the country, I also welcome Professor Şirin today as an inspiration to our research group at LSE and to all of us in the audience. Please join me in welcoming Professor Şirin to the floor.
was really amazing. Thank you so much for those kind words. I am so excited to be here because, if I just talk here, can you hear? Yes? The last person there? So I'm so excited to be here because I live in two different worlds and they don't really intersect that much. I have my work in the US, my research there, which is mostly in psychology. I write in English, I go to conferences. Then I have my work in Turkey, and if you know anything about the other world, you would say that's another person because they don't really speak to each other. So today is a chance, an opportunity for me to kind of bring it together. I was telling her yesterday that I originally had a prepared presentation for today. But yesterday I decided to change it, so it's a fresh talk for me, for you, so we will see how it goes. But I also want to tell you something personal. London is a special place for me because when I was a village boy going to Middle East Technical University, struggling in many different ways to kind of get used to college life, to get accepted by my peers, low self-confidence, everything you could imagine for a boy coming from a village. And then I had the opportunity in 1988, right? Very early times, there was only one flight. I came to this city in 1988. It really changed my outlook about life. It changed my outlook about what matters and what kind of perspective one could have and how it changes when you meet other people. I spent about a month here and in Wales. So this is a place that kind of transformed me, and it's a privilege to be back here in the same place to talk about some of the things that other young people go through. So I prepared a lecture, and if you let me know, like maybe 5 minutes point towards the end, so I can wrap it up.
By the way, I think there is a pointer on the desk,
perfect.
so yeah.
Perfect. So this is a piece I just wrote very recently. It's in annual reviews. This is basically to critique the field of psychology and its understanding of human development in general, but child and youth development in particular, and also to understand the digital age and how it affects young people. A lot of the theories we have, all of the theories we have, do not recognize digital context as an important critical element of our ecosystem. So in this paper, I go through the literature and with two of my doctoral students, Scott and Janan, we propose a new model. And I'm gonna test run that model with you here. This is the first presentation really about this. And there are a couple of things that you have to understand why we are doing this and why we need a new theory, new understanding about youth development. So basically, by the turn of the millennium, I think half the room could remember the celebrations, right? The internet was around the corner, or we have access to it. Social media is maybe there, maybe not. And the excitement that the globalization, economic integration, policy integration, European Union, everything seemed like opening doors, breaking barriers, the idealism that came out of French Revolution, that we are going to get to know each other, and the more we know about each other, we're going to have more respect for each other, and through that diversity, we will have a better world. Remember that optimism, right? That was about, 25 years ago. And then we had Facebook, Twitter, everything else in the first decade, and now we are here. 2024. It's really not the place that we imagined we would be, right, by the end of that last century. So I'm going to go through some of the things that kind of break our hearts, failed us, and why we are at this moment in history with the Trump presidency and the European Union going through the challenges and crises it goes through. Democracy everywhere, including Turkey, is struggling. So we are going to talk about all the effect and how it affects a person who is a teenager somewhere in the world. That's my purpose for this presentation. So the transformative impact of the internet. This is the optimism that internet offered us, right? You are in the middle of nowhere. Since I love that phrase, village boy, you are a village boy, you are in a village. If you grow up in a village, that's it, right? If you don't go beyond the borders of the village, everything you know, your paradigm is there. The internet is in my village. I visit my village twice a year, every year. The internet is there, they have TikTok. You know, I actually wrote a piece about romantic relationships. In my time as a young person in my village, there were only 5 girls I could fall in love with. And those are you who are studying, you know, correlated variables. They are correlated. If you do something mean with the first girl, she's gonna tell the second girl. So you have to be kind, right? It was a limited. And I was talking about this, and I said, you know, this and that. And then I went back to the village. They heard me talking about this on TV. The teenagers in the village said, well, we are also swiping, you know. It's no longer the same world. So even in that village, internet is there. So it opened the borders for everyone, right? And if you're a marginalized person in the middle of nowhere, you know, LGBTQ, any kind of ethnic, racial, marginalized person, you are feeling like you don't worth much. And then you go to the internet, you find like-minded people, support networks, etc., which is great, right? All of a sudden, you are not alone in the world, that there are other people going through this. So that really is amazing. Information exchange and everything else, economic integration, the kinds of trade and partnerships it offers is incredible, which is the good part. But it comes with a risk, right? As you can see in the next couple of slides, number one, the digital divide. Not everyone has equal access. This is no longer as big of an issue, but it is still an issue. In the world right now, among young people, 75% of young people are online. The lowest is in Africa, and that's still around 60%. In the US, UK, European Union, it's like 98, 97%, like almost everyone is online. And young people in the other part of the world, when we have the COVID and distant education, that's where it hit, right? In places like Turkey, half the kids did not have the computers or fast internet to access information, lectures, etc. So everything we are talking about the internet and what it offers is not equally available to everyone in the world. And then there are bad actors. Who are these bad actors? You know, governments, political groups, social media companies, those who are in charge of algorithms, right? And these bad actors, you know, they create misinformation. And I think this is the place, like you have experienced a few months ago, July of this year, right? Fake news emerging in the middle of nowhere. AI is used in the in UK in the riots here, right? AI created images were distributed, and it kind of bring people to the streets, and all that followed up. And why this is happening so easily? Well, algorithms are going for easily digestible information, low quality content, but also we know so much about human nature. My latest book is about human nature, so I can tell you that psychology in general, and well, psychology, behavioral science in general, really tells us what ticks individuals, right? Number one is fear, which is the most powerful emotion that we have. So if I can induce fear in you, I can move you in the direction that I want. And then if you combine that with a bad actor, an algorithm, then you have what we are seeing all over the world. You know, the fear of the other, the fear of the unknown. It could be an immigrant, it could be a refugee, it could be anybody who doesn't look like you, or it could be anyone that they think doesn't look like or do not look like you. So this brought up in terms of politics. Populists used to 30, 40 years ago, if you're a populist or extreme marginalized political figure, for you to convey your message to the general public, you had to go through the mainstream media. And there were gatekeepers, you know, fact checkers, you know, there was some problem with it, but nevertheless, you had to go through a lot of hurdles to get your voice out. Now, all it takes is to have a TikTok account or a Twitter account, and then the rest is history that we are living right now. And that's the risk that we have. Now, for adults in this room, maybe we have the background, critical thinking, maturity, emotional maturity to handle, to identify what is correct fact, what is not, what is trying to trick us, what is not. But for a lot of young people, this is the real problem. This is the challenge that we have to address somehow. So we are talking about young people. We are talking about those under 20. One of them is here. Under 20. This generation is the first native digital generation. When they were born, we already have internet everywhere. We had the social media. All the major social media companies were there. Maybe TikTok wasn't there exactly at the same time, but it was there during their teen years. So now we are talking about young people whose thinking, learning, socialization, and identity development is all happening in a world, a new world that we call digital world. And it's affecting all of their development. And this is the model that, how many of you know Euro-Brand-Farnbrenner and ecosystem ecological model? Okay, good. This is, if you study anything in behavioral science, you're gonna know this, the most cited paper, 1979, Euro-Brand-Farnbrenner. So basically what Euro-Brand-Farnbrenner did at Cornell, he put the individual at the center and he really went over all the contextual factors that affects human development, which was amazing. Right? Up until this, we have Freud, we have Erickson, we have other psychologists who were looking inward. It was all about the person as an island. Euro-Brand-Farnbrenner said, you're not an island. You live in a society, there is culture, there is systemic influence, etc. So the part that I want you to pay attention is this. I'm colorblind. This is, I think, pink, right? Yes. I see it as blue, but I know it's pink. So that's what we call microsystem. And that is the most effective, most critical context for child and youth development. So what are we talking about here? Friends, neighbors, family, school, and work, parents' work. What's more essential in the first and second decade of life is school and family, right? That informs who you are, and it affects your development. So what we have to do now is to really change that microsystem, and that's what we are proposing in the paper. We want to add here the digital network, digital world, digital age, whatever you pay. Because originally that's over here in the global. And what we are suggesting, basically, as a scientist, if you want to understand child and human development in general, you have to understand that young people today spend most of their waking hours online. Most of their, it's like 13, 14 hours, depending on where you do your study. About a third of young people are fully addicted to something on the screen. So we have to recognize this as a microsystem that defines who they are, affects every part of their development, their identity, their cognitive development, their emotional development, their social development, and academic performance. So this is the brief lecture part of this presentation. When we talk about development, these are the domains we pay attention to. So any person developing, if you're studying psychology, and where is Azra? So she wants to study psychology, so this is what you have to look at. Identity, cognitive, how we think, emotional, and social, and academic. So I'm gonna go through this very quickly. But one thing that I want to add conceptually, the last piece, is the fact that in the original Brand-Farnbrenner, so you have the immediate context here, local context, your neighbors, and then you have the macro context, that's the most distal context. What digital world or opportunities does, it breaks down the barrier between local and global. You are in a village, as I was talking earlier, but you can, get to be in touch with anyone, anywhere in the world. With now translations, ChatGPT translating everything for you, even social media platforms translate it for you anyway. So it's so easy for you to connect with anyone. So what is local, what is global is no longer as clearly differentiated as it is online, all together, experienced at the same moment in the same place. And then in terms of identity, which is the part that I think digital age affects young people the most, it affects their many different identities. Personal identity, how you see yourself. Now, every one of us, if you have a social media account, which I assume everyone here, is there anyone without social media account here? You're good parents, huh? You don't have it, or like, how old are you? 11, perfect. Anyone else? And okay, 2, good. The rest of us, oh, you are, really? How did you, say again?
Just LinkedIn.
Oh, well, that's still social. I mean, it is branding 101, right? So every time we have a social media account, we are essentially creating an online persona, right? Branding. I'm going to present myself. Like, if you follow me anywhere, like, I am a different person on Instagram, more, homey. And if you go to Twitter, I'm a little bit political there. Now I'm on Blue Sky, which I invite everyone here to come and join us there. Very small community. It's so, Blue Sky is like, I'm back in the village. In fact, that was one of the things I put there. So it's very different, right? Each platform, and it's dynamic, gives me a chance to be another person. For young people, this is experimentation. This is great, right? You can try so many different things, especially those who do not have the opportunity to move context, right? If you go to the same school, same neighborhood, you don't get to experiment about different things, about different selves, identities, and this gives you that chance. Social identity, I mean, if you are doing gaming, fandoms, activism as a young person, again, digital networks, digital platforms gives you a chance to have a different social affiliation. I thought you were going to say 5 minutes. Like no. And then cultural national identity. I mean, that's the part where I think politics comes into play. National identities are now diasporic, right? A Turkish identity is not only defined in Turkey now, it's defined by us here, by everywhere, by Turks everywhere, because now it's in the digital platform, right? You don't know where that person lives. It doesn't really matter that much. And then finally, this is the part that my optimism comes into play, the global identity. Maybe, at the end of that last century, the dream that we have, we are going to be connected, and the more we know about each other, the more we will respect, and empathy will go up, and then we will care about what matters to the globe at the global level. Not at the family level, not at this national level, but at the international level, right? So maybe global justice, maybe global warming. There are things that bring everyone together regardless of their national identification. And that is kind of a utopia still, but it is there. For a lot of young people, it is there. That global identity supersedes their other identifications. Now, that global identity could be climate change activism, which is, among young people, especially in the developed world, which is something we have to think, why only in the developed world, right? But in the developed world, young people care about the environment, global warming, and there's also, anxiety around it. It's to that level. It's very personal for them. Social justice movements like Black Lives Matter, Me Too, it started in the US, but as you know, it spread all over the world. Cross-cultural appreciation of media, fashion, and language. I mean, K-pop, right? If you have a teenager at home or this is really bringing people from all over the world that they watch the same manga show. Anyone here manga at home? Yes? One Piece? I read them. So this is kind of cool. Regardless of where you are born, which is random, as you know, you can all aspire to belong to this globe and care about some of the shared issues that we have, also dreams and imaginations we have. In terms of cognitive development, it's not as cool. Cognitive development is the part that I think, as a developmental psychologist, I worried the most for the internet effect, for the digital effect. Because on the one hand, it's great, if you have access to knowledge, you are curious about something and then you type in and it's right there. I mean, You know, I teach research methods classes at NYU, and I tell my students in 1986, when I started Middle East Technical University, we have one statistics course. One course, one semester, we did one analysis, factor analysis. Digital, no. Facet, anyone remember facet? Right? One semester. And if you make a mistake in week 3, you're gonna get F in week 14, right? And right now, that factor analysis is less than 1 second. You click, it's there. So that's kind of amazing if you think about it, like the opportunities that we have. You know, my dad is a retired teacher, and he's a fan of history, right? And he comes to visit us, and we have debates, and he says X, we say Y. We used to debate about it, and now we're like, let's check it. And he hates internet now because we cannot debate anything anymore. It's like, okay, let's check it. But new generation, it's great because they have access to knowledge. It's also amazing for diverse learning opportunities. I mean, not everyone learns the same way. Some people like to watch on a video, some people like to read, some people like to listen, podcasts, etc. Right? And then if you are into problem solving, I mean, this is amazing. Like, you can collect different information from different resources. So this is the good part. The bad part is, you know, how many of you know the term brain rot? All right. So going back to my class at NYU, I'm teaching the same class, research methods, for about 20 years now, Boston College and NYU. Each semester, I ask my students to identify a concept. We develop a measure about the concept. We go collect data about the concept, and we test hypotheses about the concept. And if you actually go back to 25 years, which one of these days I will do this analysis, it kind of reflects the times that I'm teaching the class. Like in 2007, it was hope. We studied hope. You can guess why. Obama was, you know, running for president. This year, it was brain rot, right? Brain. I never heard the term before. Skibidi, right? You know, I mean, it's the term. Like, so most people don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. Some of you understood. So it's essentially a concept that we have to pay attention, and reduced attention span information overload is part of it. So this is what I learned. I also write for a Turkish newspaper every Friday, Oxygen, and this is the study I did for Oxygen. Oops. Where did my brain rot? Wrong place. So, what is brain rot? Well, it is a diagnosable illness, mental illness right now. It's very new. In Boston Children's Hospital, they have a clinic. So essentially, a new diagnosis that refers to cognitive, I have to read this, cognitive decline, mental fog, shortened attention spans, and diminished intellectual engagement caused by excessive screen time, right? We all do this, right? If you're honest with yourself, you do it. Like, basically, you go through the screen, videos, whatever, and then the moment you're done with it, if I come to you, it's like, what did you see? You say, I don't know. That's brain rot. Aimlessly, you go through it. And the reason why we have brain rot, and among young people, this is important, I should have mentioned this earlier. So brain development occurs in 2 stages. The first one is the first 3 or 4 years, right? Anyone heard me talking about this in Turkish would remember that 1 Million Book Project is based on this. So the theory is that first 3 years, 36 months, or maybe if you push 48 months, 90% of our brain development is final. 90% of our brain development. The most critical period. But the second time where we have a growth spur in brain development is adolescent years, right? And during that period, when the brain development is going through its second and most critical development means you have to do something right. Otherwise, if you miss the opportunity, something bad may happen. That's where brain rot comes into play. During the period where adolescent brain is fragile, going through developmental growth spur, if you get it filled with filth because of the social media algorithms that pushes low quality content, fear is part of it, And algorithms love that content because the more people watch it, the more money they make it. There is no oversight whatsoever. So all of this create a dopamine loop. Dopamine loop is the chemical reaction in the brain for any addiction. This is not different from drug addiction or behavioral addiction. This is behavioral addiction. Essentially, if you don't do it after a while, then you are gonna feel uneasy, and then you go back to doing it more. And the more you do it, the more you want to do it, because that's the way addiction works. And this is very early. We don't have longitudinal research. This is the first generation, as I mentioned earlier. We don't know what's going to happen to this generation when they turn 30, 40, 50, right? So this is something to watch. So, perfect timing. I have a couple of slides, but I'm going to give the slides to the institute. If anyone wants, you can share with them. Or you can just Google my name and read the original article, which is accessible, actually. So what can we do? I'm going to talk about young people. I just talk about brain rot, and every time I talk about new technologies as a threat, I kind of go back. And if I can take, I think it was in this book. Can I? Yes, of course. I think it was Socrates. I always get them confused. Either Plato or Socrates. No, the other book. I put it on the...
I think it was Socrates.
Socrates.
Yeah.
So basically, Socrates said young people today are degenerate. They are not respectful of their elderly. When an old person comes into the room, they don't stand up and show their respect, and worried about new technologies of today, maybe tablets of different kinds. So whenever I talk about new technology threatening young people, I am also, part of me feels like maybe I'm just an old guy. Maybe it's because I am not used to this new technology, and what is unknown is a source of fear, as I mentioned earlier about fear. So we have to keep that in balance all the time. And with that, I bring you again the opportunities of this new technology for young people. Social activism, civic engagement for young people can occur through this network of like-minded people that you find online. And so for parents, number one, we are moving away from quantity to quality to monitor our children. When the internet, maybe before the COVID, American Pediatrics Institute and others, we have guidelines about how much time you should have online. Well, now, part of that time is learning, meeting, everything is online now. So we have to pay attention to the quality of the time. What is it that they are doing online? If they are playing or learning some new skills online, like my son learned how to draw manga online, right? Drawing, any kind of art, any kind of sport, you can learn online. Or you go into these amazing games where you are cooperative, in a cooperative agreement with other young people. You talk to them all the time. You're making a lot of decisions. Some of these decisions, actually, they are saying that more challenging task than a flight pilot that a 7, 8-year-old child can do, because they can process multiple variables at the same time. Something we cannot do, by the way. Like if you play some of those games, coordinated games, we can't do. So those games are good for kids. Minecraft, for example, I did a research around Minecraft. Amazing other games. So quality matters. Number two, digital detox. I did this for a month with my kids, very much appreciated it. It changed the balance of relationships, quality of relationships. I highly recommend it to you. If you have a chance, maybe just 1 week may also work, but the more the better. Remove everything digital if you can for a couple of days and see what it does. Adult modeling, if you are not a good model as a parent, as a teacher, as an adult figure, in other words, you are always brain rotting yourself, you cannot really expect, this is very, very common. But final one is perhaps the most important one. Look, as parents, as teachers, we cannot compete with a billion-dollar sector. They have marketing budgets, they have psychologists better than us, they have people, brand managers, etc., and their job is to keep children online, right? These games that they are developing now is based on all the data they have that knows what sticks, right? It's like a drug dealer. They look at 5 different games, and from each game, they pick the part where they know that keeps kids online. And then they come up with a new game. That's why every new game is more addictive than the previous one. So we cannot compete with them. Same thing with, I mean, I am struggling with Twitter. I'm not gonna call it X until I get out of there. But it's so addictive. And I am like 55 years old and I can't get out. How can I expect a 15-year-old deal with that kind of challenge? So we have to demand, as voters, as citizens, we have to demand oversight from government and government agencies and international bodies. Otherwise, if we just put everything on parents, it's a losing battle. You can't do it on your own. Now, for researchers, this brings up a lot of opportunity. How many of you researchers, I don't know, like if you're doing, okay, good. So I'm gonna go through this very quickly. So number one, digital world is a reality, as I try to argue here. So whatever you're studying, you have to pay attention to it. It's not an afterthought. It's part and parcel of human experience. Whether you study politics, whether you study international relations, whether you study psychology, sociology, whatever you are studying, it's happening online. So you have to incorporate that into your research framework. Number two, research right now in psychology, and I'm sure it's not that different in other fields, 85% of young people right now living in what we call the majority world. South America, Africa, and Asia, 85%. If you look at research, which we did in psychology, only 15% of research is about those children and those young people. So there's a huge mismatch and an opportunity for you guys, researchers, to really go there. Create culturally grounded theories. A lot of international research in psychology, behavioral science is really replicating or testing theories that are developed in the Western world in non-Western majority world. That's wrong, right? Theoretically, that's not correct. We can't do that. So we have to create new theories, grounded theories, more qualitative work from the majority world, those 3 continents, regions I mentioned, and then develop those models that are appropriate, valid for that context and bring that to the literature. And then finally, build global research collaborations. I am part of one of those such collaborations. It's so easy now. It used to be you have to email or send letters even before that. Well, now you can have a research team. I mean, I am running a research team in Turkey, Norway, and the US for almost 2 decades. Seamlessly, we can do this. And now, Jacobs Foundation is promoting a lot of new initiatives on this that I'm part of. Other, different disciplines have different infrastructures in place, but we need to have a global network of researchers with equal rights to the final product. And through that, I think we can address the earlier one. Last one. This is actually your area. So I mentioned this. Without policymakers involved in this whole process, it's a losing battle. Parents, teachers, we don't have that much power over this process. So we need to get the governments and international bodies to be involved. Data privacy, content moderation, very important, algorithms, age restrictions, all of this has to happen at the same time. Otherwise, you see what's happening. Why is there so much attack on European Union? Well, part of that attack comes from the fact that European Union is trying to impose some restrictions, some moderation, some regulation into social media companies. And there's a backlash. Unfortunately, in the United States, this is not going to happen. With Elon Musk in charge of everything, it seems like, going forward. So we need to get UN, EU, OECD, the World Bank, IMF involved in this battle to create some kind of oversight, so that when your child is online on Twitter, there is no content that's not appropriate for them. Since we have children in the room, I have to be careful. I'm not gonna focus on Turkey. Maybe in Q&A we can do that.
In the Q&A.
Well, thank you so much for your attention.